Sorry, Miss Cornwall fell off for a second.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, and those joining us online, esteemed judges, debaters, and guests, welcome to the semifinals of the National Tourism Debate. Can I have a round of applause? Listen, these teams have done well, and they have really reached far within the competition. Today, we witness a battle of wit, research, and eloquence as two outstanding schools, my favorites, Cornwall College and Charlemont High, go head to head on a topic shaping the future of Caribbean tourism. The motion before us, this House would implement the use of digital platforms and virtual experiences to diversify tourist offerings in the Caribbean. Will innovation redefine our tourism industry, or are traditional methods irreplaceable? Let the debate begin. We want to welcome our three judges this morning. Safari Hilton, businessman, and he is also a former debater. Basil Smith, consultant and a former director of tourism within the Jamaica Tourist Board. And Gavay Watt, who is representing the Jamaica Observer. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Fontana Pharmacy, Moon Palace, Royalton Resorts, Pier 1, Wards Transportation, the GHTA, and the Tourism Enhancement Fund. Proposing the motion is Cornwall College, and opposing the motion is Charlemont High. The first speaker is allowed 7 minutes, second speaker 5 minutes, and third speaker 3 minutes, followed by a rebuttal, which will begin with the opposing team.
I still can't get connection.
Didn't hear? Sorry. We will begin with the Cornwall College first speaker. Please go ahead. Taquan Ellis, who is now the Prime Minister. Go ahead, Taquan.
For timekeeping purposes, I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable panel, innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity rather than a threat. Fellow debaters and esteemed audience, today, this House is faced with a critical decision, one that will determine the future of tourism in the Caribbean. And I, as Prime Minister, stand resolute in the belief that this House must implement the use of digital platforms and virtual experiences to diversify tourist offerings in the Caribbean. The world is changing rapidly. The way people experience and engage with travel is no longer the same. If the Caribbean tourism sector refuses to adapt, we risk falling behind, losing revenue, and becoming obsolete in a digital world. But the solution is right in front of us. Digital platforms and virtual experiences expand opportunities to reach new audiences and future-proof our tourism sector. Now, today my team and I will present a compelling argument for why this change is not just desirable, but necessary. As Prime Minister, I will define the motion, provide context, and introduce two key arguments. First, that digital tourism expands our market reach, allowing more people to experience the Caribbean. And second, that this move ensures that the Caribbean remains competitive in an industry that is constantly evolving. My Deputy Prime Minister will prove how this plan creates jobs and promotes sustainable tourism, making our economy stronger and more resilient. And finally, our third speaker will secure this debate in our favor, showing how this plan improves guest experiences and why the opposition has failed to provide a better solution. Then I will return for reply. But before I move forward, let's clarify the motion. To diversify means to expand and introduce new offerings in this debate, making our tourism industry more inclusive and dynamic. Tourist offerings are the experiences and services that we provide to our visitors, from beach resorts to cultural events. Digital platforms are online tools that make tourism more accessible and interactive. Think of virtual tour apps, booking websites, and interactive AI-powered guides. And virtual experiences allow tourists to explore destinations digitally using VR, AR, and live streamed events. Now, on to context. What is the problem? The problem is that the Caribbean's tourism model is outdated. Honorable panel, the Caribbean tourism industry is built on physical travel. Our beautiful beaches, festivals, and cultural events are only accessible if someone flies in. But this model is outdated. It excludes millions of potential tourists and leaves us vulnerable to economic shocks. Let's look at history. When COVID-19 hit, the Caribbean tourism industry collapsed overnight. Borders closed, flights stopped, and our economy suffered massively. If we had virtual tourism offerings, we could have kept generating revenue instead of waiting for borders to reopen. The next generation of tourists are also digital natives. Currently, they're playing VR games, they're scrolling on Instagram, or they're watching YouTube travel vlogs. If we fail to capture their attention online, they won't consider us. I'll take that point.
Okay. If VR tourism is supposed to make the Caribbean economy more resilient, why didn't any major tourism dependent country use it successfully during the COVID-19 period?
Well, they didn't use it successfully during that period because, well, during that period, they had a lot of things on their mind. I mean, now when we're not reeling, so when we have time to reel from it and come back, we're way better suited to actually implement this properly. The main thing is to implement it properly. Now, I'll move on. So let's also not forget affordability. Flights and hotel stays are expensive. Many people want to experience the Caribbean, but simply can't afford it. But what if we could bring the Caribbean to them? The solution is clear. We must evolve, and digital tourism is the answer. So how will we do this? Our plan has 3 simple steps. Subsidize digital startups to develop VR tours, AR experiences, and digital travel platforms. 2, partner with tech giants like Google, Meta, and Airbnb to integrate Caribbean destinations into global travel apps. And 3, incentivize hotels, museums, and tour operators to adopt hybrid tourism models, offering both physical and virtual experiences. Right? Now, let's just quickly address some of opposition's likely concerns before I get into my speech. We understand that, they might be asking, where will we find the money? But opposition, this is an investment, right? It's not a waste of money. This is an investment into the future. And even if we need to find the money, the World Bank recently provided $94 million for digital transformation in the Caribbean. And this proves that international organizations recognize the importance of digitalization, but also we can properly allocate our budget, and allocation is key, right? Now let's get into my first point, which is implementing a hybrid tourism model which uses technology will expand the reach of our tourism markets. Now let's look at some things I spoke on before. The tourism sector in the Caribbean largely requires tourists to be physically present to experience it. And that cuts off a large chunk of persons who are unable to enjoy our offerings, including those who can't move because of health issues such as being in a wheelchair, financial issues, or even visa restrictions. Imagine it, Honorable Speaker. Someone able to experience Carnival from their wheelchair, or even paying for a virtual ticket rather. This is inclusivity, and this is how we maximize our profit in the industry. The truth is that our tourism industry isn't at a point where we can pick, choose, or refuse any profit. And as such, we need as much as possible. So the bottom line is that if there are more ways for tourists to access our offerings, then there will be far more revenue for the tourism sector, which is indisputably the end goal of both sides of the house. Moreover, for there to be more avenues to access tourism, there has to be more persons being exposed to tourism. In an article titled "Jamaican Tourism Goes Full Steam into the Digital Age," the Honorable Edmund Bartlett states that he wants to enable small players to have access to markets in different parts of the world. Digitalizing our supply chain can connect small producers with larger markets through online platforms to foster economic growth. Right now, on to my second point, the sector is crying for change. The tourism sector in the Caribbean has remained stagnant over the years, and sadly, we have now been put at danger of becoming extinct. Panel, if you live with any children in your house, I'm sure you know how attached they are to their phones. When this generation becomes adults, nothing will change. So we have to change to accommodate them. If our tourism sector stays the same, the next generation will not be inclined to visit us because of how technologically behind we are. The next generation being so reliant on technology is something we can't change, but we can change to accommodate them. When we become digitalized and tech savvy, they will be inclined to visit us. Panel, this ensures that 20 years from now, we still have an active tourism industry. This means we give people a reason to experience Jamaica. This means that our tourism sector will be saved. So there will be a reason for more persons to visit Jamaica now, and there will be reasons to visit later. Panel, for this reason, I am proud to propose the motion and open the debate as the Prime Minister of the House.
Thank you very much. We will now move over to Charlemont. Charlemont, please go ahead.
Madam Speaker, esteemed judges, worthy opponents, and my colleagues, good day. We, the opposition, stand in resolute disagreement with the motion. This House would implement the use of digital platforms and virtual experiences to diversify tourist offerings in the Caribbean. Before proceeding, let us establish a clear understanding of the key terms in this debate. The word implement, as defined by the Cambridge Dictionary, means to start using a plan or system. Digital platforms, according to the 2018 study, comparing the use of digital platforms in tourism, are online systems that facilitate interaction between service providers and consumers, enabling the exchange of information, services, and experiences related to travel. Examples include Airbnb, where private individuals offer lodging to visitors, Uber and Lyft, which connect travelers with local drivers. Virtual experiences involve using technology to stimulate real-world travel without physical presence. This includes 360-degree videos, interactive images, and virtual or augmented reality technology that aims to create immersive digital tourism. A tourism offering refers to the total package of services, products, and experiences made available to tourists, including accommodations, attractions, events, and transportation. So the motion essentially proposes that Caribbean governments start to use digital platforms and virtual experiences as an alternative way to diversify and expand tourism. As the leader of the opposition, I will show that implementing new digital platforms for Caribbean tourism is unnecessary and the infrastructure is not yet ready. Our second speaker will focus on the high costs and no return of virtual reality tourism and explain why it is impractical for our region. Our third speaker will summarize our case and demonstrate why traditional tourism remains superior and more sustainable. Madam Speaker, the motion brings together two separate concepts, digital platforms and virtual experiences. Both must be explored independently, but we will begin with digital platforms. Before we even consider implementing digital platforms and virtual experiences, the Caribbean must first fix its underlying digital infrastructure challenges. According to the Inter-American Development Bank 2022, the Caribbean faces significant gaps in telecommunications and digital services compared to more advanced economies. The article Digital Infrastructure's Outsized Potential for the Caribbean highlights issues with broadband access, affordability, digital training, and rural connectivity. To put it simply, allow me to finish my point first. You must build a house before you move in the furniture. Go ahead.
Well, implementing digital technologies is basically building the house. Obviously, if we implement it, we're going to have to train people to use it. We're going to have to do all of that. So implementation would completely dismantle your whole point there.
I don't understand what you're saying. I'll continue. Yes, countries like Jamaica are making progress, but smaller island states lag behind significantly in access, speed, and affordability. Projects like the World Bank's Caribbean Digital Transformation Project are a step in the right direction, supporting countries like Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines with upgrades in digital infrastructure, e-government platforms, and skills training. However, let us be clear. Building infrastructure is not the same as implementing digital platforms. Laying fiber optic cables and boosting network capacity is like building roads. Digital platforms are the vehicles that use these roads. And right now, most Caribbean governments are still in the
POI
road
speaker.
building. Allow me decline. Until digital services are consistently accessible, reliable, and integrated into public and private life, we cannot reasonably ask governments to build complex tourism platforms on an unstable digital foundation. Madam Speaker, we're saying we're ready to implement digital platforms before fixing our infrastructure. It's like trying to stream Netflix on dial-up. It's not just slow, it's painful. Madam Speaker, our next point is that there is no need for new
Point of
platforms.
information, Speaker.
Factoring existing ones already work. The motion suggests that Caribbean governments should create new digital platforms. This is unrealistic and inefficient. Global platforms like Airbnb, Expedia, TripAdvisor, and Booking.com already dominate the market. These companies have invested billions in development, employ massive tech teams, and
Point of
boast global
information, Speaker.
reputations. Governments simply cannot compete. Even if a Caribbean country builds a local tourism app, it will struggle to gain traction. It will also require continuous investment in maintenance and updates, cybersecurity, marketing, and user acquisition. All of this would divert funds from critical improvements like road security attractions and airport upgrades. So why reinvent the wheel? The smart approach is to leverage the global platforms already available, train local tourism providers to use them more effectively, improve digital literacy and content creation, partner with international tech firms for better visibility. Government-made tourism platforms competing with Airbnb and Expedia, that's like sending a donkey to race Formula One. It's just not built for it. Why spend millions creating something that already exists and works far better? Wouldn't that money be better spent on expanding ecotourism, preserving heritage sites, or enhancing transportation for real-world travelers? The government might cite programs like the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project as proof that implementation has started, but let us not confuse foundation with execution. There's a difference between potential and practice. Until digital platforms are widely adopted, accessible to all, and reliable, we cannot claim that digital tourism is ready to be implemented at scale. Furthermore, even with infrastructure in place, it takes years to build user trust, content depth, and reach to compete in digital tourism space. Madam Speaker, we have shown that the Caribbean's digital infrastructure is not yet ready to support new tourism platforms. Existing global platforms already meet the needs of travelers and providers, and governments should invest in leveraging current tools, not duplicating them. Digital platforms are not the solution. They are already part of the system. There is no need to develop new ones from scratch. Until infrastructure is ready and there's a clear, cost-effective purpose, this motion is premature and impractical. We urge this House to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Cornwall College, please go ahead.
You will begin in 3.
Okay, for timekeeping purposes, I will begin in 3. For timekeeping purposes, I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, esteemed opponents, and my fellow teammates, a pleasant good afternoon. Before we begin, I'd like to offer a few rebuttals to our misguided opportunities. They say we don't have the infrastructure. However, it's clear that they agree that the implementation is good, but the infrastructure is a problem. So if infrastructure is a problem, as my first speaker said, we would have to implement systems to start using the digital platforms, obviously. But even then, we do not have the infrastructure. They haven't proven that we don't. Furthermore, we are not creating, we are implementing. Opposition has created a case for a different motion, but even then, they give no ways to fix the problem. On to my speech. Our first speaker has laid the foundation for why integrating digital platforms and virtual experiences in the Caribbean tourism is not just an option, it's a necessity. Today, I will further strengthen our case by providing two critical benefits to this approach. First, that it creates jobs and diversifies the economy. And second, that it ensures sustainable tourism and resilience to disruptions. My first point, creating jobs and diversifying the economy. A common argument against digital transformation is that it eliminates jobs. However, this claim is misleading because in reality, digital tourism expands economic opportunities by creating new industries and employment streams. By integrating technology into tourism, we are not replacing jobs, we are creating more. To understand how, consider the wide range of careers that emerge when we embrace digital tourism. We need skilled web developers, virtual reality designers, AI specialists, and digital marketers to create and maintain virtual tourism platforms. This means training programs can equip Caribbean youth with digital skills, leading to high-paying jobs in technology. Change is inevitable, and obviously our world is advancing in the digital age. So why should tourism lag behind? Additionally, tour guides who once relied solely on in-person visits can now offer live stream virtual tours of historical sites like Nelson's Dockyard in Antigua, or a guided dive to the Belize Barrier Reef, earning additional income. Similarly, local artisans and cultural practitioners can monetize their talents online, whether through virtual cooking classes where Jamaican chefs teach tourists how to make jerk chicken, or live drumming sessions led by Rastafarian musicians from Trinidad and Tobago. The impact of this shift is immense. By adopting digital tourism, we expand economic opportunities beyond traditional tourism roles. Instead of being dependent on seasonal visitors, Caribbean workers can earn income year-round from a global audience. Countries like Dubai have successfully implemented virtual tourism initiatives, increasing their tourism inquiries by 15%. Imagine the possibilities for the Caribbean. This diversification makes our economy stronger, more competitive, and less vulnerable to external shocks. My second point being sustainable tourism and resilience to disruptions. Another crucial reason why the Caribbean must embrace digital platforms is that it ensures long-term sustainability and resilience against disruptions. The COVID-19 pandemic made it clear that an over-reliance on traditional tourism is dangerous. When borders closed and flights were canceled, the Caribbean's tourism industry collapsed, leading to massive job losses and economic downturns. Had we invested in digital tourism before the crisis, our economies would not have suffered so severely. Beyond pandemics, climate change is an ever-growing threat to the Caribbean tourism sector. Rising sea levels, hurricanes, and coastal erosion put many of our top destinations at risk. For example, in 2019, Hurricane Dorian devastated the Bahamas, causing billions in damage and severely disrupting the country's tourism industry. If physical infrastructure is constantly under threat, it is unwise to depend on it alone. By incorporating virtual experiences, we ensure that even during hurricanes or other disasters, the Caribbean remains accessible to international visitors. The impact of sustainable tourism is twofold. First, it ensures that Caribbean tourism remains operational, even in times of crisis. Second, making our region more attractive to eco-conscious travelers and investors. This hybrid approach, blending physical and digital tourism, creates a resilient, future-proof industry that benefits everyone. In conclusion, we are not arguing to replace traditional tourism, but to enhance and future-proof it. By integrating digital platforms and virtual experiences, we are creating jobs, expanding economic opportunities, and making Caribbean tourism more inclusive and sustainable. This approach protects us against global disruptions, supports climate resilience, and ensures long-term stability. Thank you.
Charlemont High, second speaker. Please approach the podium. You may go ahead.
Madam Speaker, esteemed judges, worthy opponents, and my fellow colleagues, good day to you all. As the second speaker for the opposition, I will further dismantle the proposition's case by exposing the impracticalities of virtual reality in tourism. Members of the government, let me say this clear with my chest. VR is a gimmick, not a replacement. Madam Speaker, honorable judges, don't let the government fool you. VR has been around for decades. It's older than the internet, and yet its use is still marginalized and limited. 90% of virtual reality are used for gaming and movies. According to 2024 study by Focusrite, less than 50% of travelers have ever used virtual reality for tourism purposes. Further, a 2022 study by Artillery Intelligence found that 61% of Americans have no interest in owning a VR headset. So, if VR cannot even gain widespread adoption in
Point of
tech-heavy
information,
countries
Speaker.
to revolutionize tourism in the Caribbean, I'm in my first minute, declare. Madam Speaker, another major flaw in the government's argument is the assumption that the Caribbean can develop VR experiences on the same scale of global tourism giants. But let's be honest, our budgets simply don't compare, suggesting that we should create VR experiences like those in Smithsonian or the Grand Egyptian Museum is totally ridiculous. Let's compare the Bob Marley Museum to the British Museum. One is a beloved cultural gem, the other has billions in government funding, global partnerships, and a dedicated research teams. Caribbean countries are already stretched thin, trying to keep schools open, hospitals supplied, and roads drivable. Do we really want to shift
Point of information, Speaker.
into building virtual tours that might not even be used? Declare. Madam Speaker, the proposition assumes that investing in virtual reality tourism will boost the Caribbean tourism package. However, global data proves otherwise. And before I go into that global data, what I wanted to ask proposition, wouldn't investing in real world tourism, such as ecotourism or adventure travel, diversify our tourism product more? Moving on to my data. Creating virtual reality experiences are too expensive and offer too low a return on investment. According to an article by businessplans.com entitled, "How much does it cost to start a virtual reality tourism business?" The simplest systems would cost a minimum of $250 for software development and at least another $100,000 in maintenance yearly. Millions in marketing, distribution, and device compatibility testing. Can countries reliably spend tens of millions of dollars to maintain these 360 VR tours with no guarantee of return on investment? And let us not forget the cost for tourists. A high-quality VR headset like the MetaQuest 3 costs between $500 to $700. How many travelers are willing to buy expensive VR headsets just to take a virtual tour to the Caribbean? Come on, government. Let's get real now. Madam Speaker, VR tourism is not a new idea. It has been attempted and failed multiple times. I have my data right here to prove it. First, we have the Google Expeditions 2015 to 2021. Government, please listen. Google launched VR travel experiences for education and tourism, but shut down the project in 2021 due to low engagement. Moving on, Alaska Airlines in 2019 attempted VR-based in-flight tourism previews, but discontinued the program because passengers found it unengaging and impractical. And look at this one. The Louvre Museum in Paris, 2020, introduced a VR tour of the Mona Lisa, but reports showed low adoption rates as visitors preferred seeing the painting in real life. No, the government, if VR tourism has failed in global markets, how can the Caribbean expect it to thrive here? Madam Speaker, the idea of virtual reality tourism sounds futuristic and, to be honest, very exciting. But the reality is clear. It is expensive, It is impractical and lacks consumer interest. The Caribbean does not need virtual substitutes. What it really needs, government, it needs real, immersive experiences that bring the travelers here in person. For this reason, we, the opposition, strongly oppose this motion. Thank you.
Cornwall College. This is our final speaker from Cornwall College, Mr. Justin Donaldson. Am I correct? Justin, you can go ahead.
Yes, this is Justin Donaldson. For the purpose of timekeeping, everyone, I'll begin in 3. Am I audible? Just to begin. Hello?
Yes, you're fine. Please begin.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, audience, and fatwas opponents, I bid you all a wonderful afternoon. Madam Speaker, it seems like I have to clear up this debate because it is evident that side opposition has dangerously misinterpreted this debate. First speaker mentions we, the government, are creating digital platforms when the motion and our case states that we will implement the use of digital platforms, not create them. Furthermore, in their case, they wish to partner with these established digital platforms like Google and Airbnb that we, in our case, we have. So it is evident that they do agree with us. So I'm not even sure what is the point of this debate anymore. But I digress. Firstly, I digress because I have to mention that a single POI from my first speaker dismantled their entire case, and their case is utterly laughable. So now to dismantle the few arguments that they did have in their case. Firstly, opposition argues that digital diverse tourism will essentially cannibalize physical tourism, right? This claim is baseless. Adjudicators, we understand that the heart of tourism is human interaction. We are not using digital platforms to eliminate these interactions. As a matter of fact, they can't even do that to the extent that side opposition would like you to believe. Rather, we'll enhance the experiences of tourists by offering more flexible and accessible ways to connect, explore, and plan trips. Additionally, virtual platforms act as a gateway to ignite curiosity and inspire travel, widening the audience by reaching those who may not otherwise have the right of way access to our shores, creating a stronger demand. Secondly, they mention cybersecurity concerns. Opposition fears are misplaced. The motion isn't about unpredictable, rapidly evolving AI, but it is about already existing digital platforms like Google and Airbnb, which already have their robust security systems in place. These technologies are proven and manageable, not experimental. And we, the government ourselves, will also have our own cybersecurity measures for these companies when we want to partner with them, right? So the lack of innovation from opposition on baseless fears cannot be accepted, Madam Speaker, adjudicators, right? So, moreover, they talk about the cost implementation. We can't afford that. Well, this is simply not true. They have failed to stay up to date with status quo. They have failed to recognize the investment is already in the works by the Ministry of Tourism for the long-term returns, as my first speaker would have mentioned. If they listen to the debate, through strategic partnership grants like the World Bank of Eastern Caribbean to $94 million for these Caribbean countries, including also, and better allocation of resources. That this is a plan that is feasible, but also essential. Our model works because it will ultimately improve the experience of visitors. Virtual tours, augmented reality previews, and immersive online experiences will draw tourists in before they even set foot in the Caribbean. This isn't just speculation. Studies such as Science Direct shows the immersive previews increase travel intent by 30% and more, enhance our site experiences. When tourists arrive, digital tools will enhance their journey. Imagine using an app to unlock hidden treasures in a city you've never been to before, scanning AR to guide and learn the history of a landmark, or booking seamless activities online. This is the argument. This is the future. Even after tourists leave, our model keeps them connected to online events, cultural experiences, and digital classes. This ensures repeat visits and lifelong loyalty. Honorable judges, tourism is not just an industry in Jamaica. It is the lifeblood of our economy, the heartbeat of our culture, and the future of our people. Our model embraces for the changing digital age. As such, competing destinations like Dubai and Singapore, who have already leveraging these technologies to enhance tourism, second speaker, I mind you, we can't be left behind by them, right? So we will have to implement this, right? So adjudicators, we have better interpreted this motion. We have brought actual solutions. Side opposition has brought fear and foolish claims. Our model will improve visibility of local businesses, improve guest experience, and drive Jamaica to one step closer to sustainable tourism. And for that, side proposition has won this debate. I rest my case. Thank you.
Anthony Demetrius, you may go ahead when you're ready.
Madam Speaker, esteemed judges, my worthy opponents and colleagues, good day. Throughout this debate, we have shown that the implementation of new digital platforms and virtual reality is both unnecessary and impractical. Now, as the third speaker, my job is to solidify our stance, refute any remaining claims from the proposition, and remind this House why real-world tourism is irreplaceable. Madam Speaker, tourism is a multi-sensory experience. Madam Speaker, let us start by acknowledging a fundamental fact. Tourism is all about engaging the senses, all the senses. Travelers visit the Caribbean for the warmth of the sun on their skin, the smell of the ocean breeze, the taste of our world-famous jerk chicken and fresh seafoods, the vibrant sounds of reggae and the steel drums, and the thrill of hiking through lush rainforests or climbing Duns River Falls. VR offers none of these experiences. It engages only two senses, sight and sound, while failing to replicate the physical, emotional, and cultural depth of real-world travel. No digital headset can make a visitor truly feel the pulse of the Caribbean. Madam Speaker, VR may work for education and entertainment and gaming, but it does not align with what makes Caribbean tourism truly successful. Our culture is built on people, experiences, and connections, not on screens and simulations. No headset can replicate the energy of a live reggae concert or the warmth of a local street vendor's empathy and hospitality. Traditional tourism allows for families and friends to create shared moments together. We firmly say that the Caribbean should focus on real-world tourism, not digital escapism. Instead of wasting money on VR and digital platforms, the government should invest in tangible improvements, such as better roads and transportation, in order to make real-world tourism more accessible. Environmental conservation to protect the Blue Mountains and other natural resources. Marketing these experiences to attract more visitors, because nothing beats the real thing. Madam Speaker, the Caribbean is a top-tier travel destination because of its authenticity. If we trade real-world experiences for virtual gimmicks, we will destroy the essence of our authentic Caribbean product. Madam Speaker, no headset can replace the magical, pulsating vibe of the Caribbean. Let us not waste time and money on digital illusions. Let us invest in real-world travel, culture, and experiences. For this reason, we strongly oppose the motion. Thank you.
Thank you to both teams. Can we have a round of applause, please? I see Charlemont applauding. Very good, Charlemont. Proud of you, Cornwall College. Well done. Both teams will now prepare their rebuttals. Judges, we ask that you use the time to begin tallying your scores. We will allocate approximately 2 minutes for you to prepare the rebuttals, and when we return, we will begin with our opposing team, which in this case is Charlemont High. Just a refresher of what the motion is. This House would implement the use of digital platforms and virtual experiences to diversify tourist offerings in the Caribbean. We want to thank Fontana Pharmacy, Moon Palace Royalton Resorts, the Tourism Enhancement Fund for prizes Pair One, World Transportation, and the GHTA. We have with us our judges, Basil Smith, Tafari Hilton, and Gabe Watt. 1 minute remaining. Charlemont, are we ready?
Yes, please. Yes,
All
miss.
right, so you may approach the podium. Who is doing the rebuttal? Kadalee?
Kadalee McLean.
Okay.
Can I begin?
Go ahead, Kadalee.
Madam Speaker, esteemed judges, worthy opponents, and fellow colleagues, good day. We, the opposition, stand in firm disagreement with this motion. This House would implement the use of digital platforms and virtual experiences to diversify tourist offerings in the Caribbean. We have listened carefully to the government's arguments, and while they present digital platforms and virtual experiences as the future of tourism, their case is fundamentally flawed. Today, I will dismantle their claims and reaffirm why real world tourism, not digital illusions, is the backbone of the Caribbean economy. The first speaker spoke about COVID-19, saying that if we had virtual reality COVID-19, it would somewhat cushion the flow of COVID-19. But there's no evidence at all to suggest it would work. And if we're using VR as just, for want of a better word, approach to support us in epidemics, does it make sense to implement it as a tourism product if we're not having an epidemic or otherwise? And prices, we still won't be able to cover it, even though the first opposition speaker spoke that, oh, it may be a feasible approach because we can afford it. We still won't be able to cover it. It's too risky, and we don't have the money as a Caribbean to be experimenting to see what works and what won't work. The second speaker spoke about sustainability. Based on our second speaker's speech, it proves that virtual reality and augmented reality are not sustainable. Creating virtual reality experiences are too expensive and offer too low a return on investment, according to the article by businessplans.com. It also takes into account for costs. It also spoke about it working for Dubai. Dubai is not Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, or a Caribbean country. They have the money to test it, and if it doesn't work, they can always recover. We don't have that money. We don't have that money or anywhere to source the money. And then it spoke about the 90 million. It's about Eastern Caribbean infrastructure. They misunderstood the source, because if you read the article clearly, it does not speak to implementing digital platforms, but digital infrastructure, which is our point. The third speaker, well, first let's just tackle the issue of evidence. There's no evidence to suggest virtual reality would be successful in the Caribbean, which is a pivotal point that the opposition, pardon me, the proposition lacked. The proposition and spoke, but where is the evidence that it will work? Let us make it clear. Virtual reality does not work. A 2024 study by Flows-Right states that less than 15% of travelers have ever used virtual reality for tourism purposes. A 2022 study by Artery Intelligence found that 61% of Americans have no interest in owning a virtual reality exit. If it doesn't work in those tech advanced countries, how will it work here in the Caribbean? Infrastructure, we must implementation and creation didn't clearly define implementation, and based on our definition, it's to start something new. The proposition cannot suggest something that's already here and say that, oh, they're starting something new and they're implementing a digital platforms. Digital platforms are already here, and if you want to implement our own, we have to first fix our infrastructure, as we stated. The first speaker from the government argued that we need new digital platforms to modernize Caribbean tourism. However, the reality is that these platforms already exist and are working efficiently. The Caribbean already has a strong digital presence. Expedia, Booking.com, Airbnb, and TripAdvisor already facilitate millions of Caribbean bookings annually. In conclusion, the Caribbean already benefits from digital platforms. Spending millions to build new ones is redundant, wasteful, and unnecessary. The opposition rests.
Cornwall College, you may go ahead.
For time's keeping purposes, I'll begin in 3, 2, and 1. Panel, as I said in the beginning, so will I say in the end. Innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity rather than a threat. Honorable panel, since the start of this case, the opposition has tried to win a completely different motion than the one you were given. Do you know the main problem? They're arguing that we should create digital platforms, but the motion doesn't ask us to do that. I'm ready to give you the case as it is. Panel, the opposition was on a sinking boat and grabbed onto every single straw that they could. First, they said our infrastructure is not ready. Yet they didn't prove that it isn't. But even then, let's take their best case. Implementation will obviously have to deal with implementing infrastructure too. Under the motion, implement is synonymous with words such as executing and applying. There are some simple words for you. Implementation is not creation, it's simply execution. It's application of something that is already created or using framework that has already been used elsewhere. But then they claim that it is the only reason we shouldn't implement it. So if infrastructure is the only reason we shouldn't implement it, they agree that otherwise we could have implemented it and gained the benefits. Judges, don't become pessimistic too. Furthermore, they said to continue to invest in things that are already being used. They said real world tourism is good, where you can go and you can meet up with Jamaicans and actually have that Jamaican experience. And you know what, opposition? We agree. But panel, this is not to replace real world tourism. It's just another way they tried to fool you, panel. We agree that our sector benefits greatly from the energy in the Caribbean. But the truth is, not everybody wants to or is able to experience this. And this is the market that we need to reach today. You have failed to diversify the tourism offerings, adding to the list of things you have failed to do. Diversify means to change. And under the motion, you have failed to change anything in the industry. And you have failed to reach out to the persons who are unable to reach to us. Panel, they are pessimistic and a backwards team that lacks any sort of vision. Real entrepreneurship is seeing what hasn't been done yet. We can't let others' failures be the reason we don't try. The second speaker spots so many statistics, but what failed in the US does not dictate what will fail in the Caribbean. If the US is trying to invest in beaches and they don't have a lot of beaches, obviously it's going to fail, but that doesn't mean it's going to fail in the Caribbean. As the saying goes, puss and dog now have the same luck. But if you want names, my third speaker gave you Singapore and Dubai. But furthermore, something that hasn't been done before is exactly what we need. Something new. Panel, that is what innovation is. Now, panel, what did we successfully do? We proved that we diversify the industry far more than the opposition, and we bring meaningful change. We proved that digital platforms are the way to bring about this change, and we suggested that the digital platforms to use, which to the detriment of the second speaker, wasn't just consisting of VR headsets. It's more than VR headsets. It's digital platforms, virtual experiences. What did the opposition fail to do? Opposition failed to provide a reasonable way to diversify the industry, and instead wants us to continue investing into what we've already done and what proposition has proven fails time and time again. They failed to debate the motion at hand. They failed to pivot their case to answer our case. Panel, it is clear who has won. And the only question you need to ask now is who successfully diversified the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now create a breakout room for our judges to deliberate. Welcome back. This was, I think I'm gonna leave it for the judges. I'm gonna leave this one for the judges. So welcome back to the semi-final rounds of the 2024 National Tourism Debate. We do have some feedback from all our judges, and this afternoon we had Cornwall College versus Charlemont High. And I will now begin with Judge Tafari Hilton, then we move over to Basil Smith, tourism consultant and a former director at the Jamaica Tourist Board, and then Gabe Watt, representing the Jamaica Observer, will wrap it up for us. So, Tafari, you may go ahead.
All right, good morning, everyone. Sorry, good afternoon, everyone. I don't know why I keep rewinding the clock. All right, so thank you both teams for your presentations. This match fell flat for us as the judges. We see where the teams were not adequately researched. You guys didn't interpret and contextualize emotions as well as you could have, and thus both teams there wasn't really where one team was really miles ahead versus one being, a play catch up. It was really just okay, we're also now having to comb through we'll use a fine tooth comb now to really try and say which argument edges out the other, right? Cornwall, you guys are a team government, and we see how you guys really dropped the ball on this. We wish you had contextualized more of what this VR tourism is, or rather would look like, can look like, and to show more data of how it can actually benefit us and who even wants it. Because the second speaker for Charlemont, they actually platform their argument exceptionally well by showing us the data of who wants this, how viable it is. And that was a really strong argument by Charlemont. But overall, Charlemont's arguments were also pretty weak as well, because you guys almost failed to really tackle much of the points by Cornwall. You keep talking about infrastructure. We don't have this. They've already stated that in terms of money, we're getting a grant. They've already argued that in their implementation, the infrastructure would be created. Therefore, you should have argued what that implementation will look like, right? Because they don't say we're gonna do the groundwork to get where we want to go. Therefore, you guys need to know, question what is that groundwork? How much will it cost? How feasible is that? So what I'm saying? So you could have spent more time arguing on that. And my last point, both third speakers, you guys could have used your times and your arguments much better. Charlemont, your third speaker was short. You had like a minute left, so that you could have put in a lot more arguments there. For Cornwall, your third speaker starts out with a rebuttal, which was kind of like your saving grace. But at the same time, you could have put out more arguments to strengthen your argument as well. So both of the third speakers fell very flat. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much. We will now move over to Mr. Basil Smith. Mr. Smith, you can begin when you are ready.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry. Yes, both teams overlook the significant point, which is the whole purpose of any economic activity is to monetize the activity that you're discussing. And both teams neglected, particularly Cornwall, in making the case to adopt this virtual experiences and diversify our tourism offerings in that way, without demonstrating how it will benefit the national economy, which would have been the purpose of the exercise. And in the rebutting the argument, Charlemont failed to demonstrate that even though the costs that they were itemizing might be high, as long as the costs justify the profit that you were going to make, which you failed to demonstrate, the costs might, well, I wouldn't say would be immaterial, but the most significant thing is that there was no profit discussed on either side. That for me was the main shortcoming. So I approach the judging from the point of view that you have to make allowance that they both are arguing a flawed argument. And I think in the balance of things, it is fair to say that Charlemont did make a better case in demonstrating the shortcomings in the argument stated by Cornwall College. But both teams need to recognize the point that they failed on this very crucial initial point, that the purpose of an economic activity is to make economic gains. And tourism is an economic activity, and both teams failed to recognize this. That was my main consideration in the discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Mr. Watt, over to you, who will now deliver the winning scores.
All right, I think both teams could have done some more research today, just to make the points very clear. As a digital native and somebody who travels a lot, there is a lot of offerings that are possible to enhance the experience and increase revenue. So for example, if you're traveling from the States, just to get through the line at customs, there is a system called Clear that you have to pay that allows you to skip the line and just be able to get through TSA quicker. And that is a revenue earning stream. And in addition to the tourism process, because the worst part of traveling is you don't want to stand in long lines, you don't want to wait. You really actually just want to get on the plane or get on the ship, get to your destination and get back home. Not sure when last either of you guys would have traveled, but even here at our local airports now, when you do the online form, you go to the kiosk, you go up to the glass exits, they scan your face, everything matches up and you are out. So the process is a lot shorter and it makes the travel experience a lot better. I think you both raised some interesting arguments as well, but didn't follow through on them. So if you're going to look at, for example, visiting the Bob Marley Museum, and they can say, yes, you know, it doesn't match up to a museum abroad, but Bob Marley still continues to rake in millions of dollars each year. You know, how is it then that, you know, we can partner with the estate owners of you know, Bob Marley assets to ensure that, you know, more digital records are sold? Or how do we add to that experience when they go to the museum? Same as well. You know, when you go to different tourist spots abroad, you know, you have at the end of it, you know, you have offerings such as games, you know, where you can scan on the wall and you can buy a game that can continue to experience what you would have just experienced. And so the important thing is that the mood pointed us to enhancing, and I think at different points, different arguments were being made by both teams. In particular, even down to the rebuttal, and I made note of it from, you know, the Cornwall side. You know, he said, yeah, you know, not everybody wants to come and have that intimate interaction. Not everybody wants this, and this is a market that we need. You also said that, you know, something that has not, we have to look at something that has not been done before. Innovation is what we need. And so when you make those arguments, you really should have to back it up with practical examples and the figures that go forward. All in all, good effort on both sides. I would say, though, for a semi-final match, it needed to be stronger. And so whichever team is moving on to the final, and I'm not sure if there's a third place playoff, you have to ensure that you come and you make the case. This is a stage of the competition as well, where you have to listen to what the other team is saying and pivot in real time. You have to dismantle those arguments in real time, or even adjust your arguments if they would have said something that, debunk something that you have. And even though it's in your speech, you don't have to say it any at all. You can take it out and use that time with the information that you would have read and prepared to make another case in real time, even if you're winging it, but ensure that your argument and your case is made, because it's not going to be the team that comes and does the best speech anymore. It's going to be the team who is able to handle the information, who is well prepared and can handle the information being presented by the opponent in real time and make the case. Today, though, I think probably the best arguments that I've heard from a speaker since judging, and I think all of the judges agree, he was just fluid, he was solid, and so our best debater for today is the second speaker from Charlemont. Overall, the scores are for Cornwall, 904, and for Charlemont, 989.
Thank you so very much. And just a reminder of our sponsors this afternoon. We have Fontana Pharmacy, Moon Palace, Royalton Resorts, Pier 1, Wards Transportation, and the GHTA. We want to thank the Tourism Enhancement Fund, and we want to thank you who joined us online. Just a reminder of our rule, which is the rule of the electronic device is not allowed in our competition. We did not remove any marks, for this, but moving to the finals, please be aware of this rule. I'm your host, Michelle Tallo. Until next time, thank you, judges. We will join you next week again to see who will be competing against Charlemont's High for the finals. Thank you so very much.